Hello, welcome to the next session of ATypI 2020. We're already in day 4, I guess. It's Friday, and a lot of people must be having good time enjoying different presentation of ATypI. So now the next topic that we are presenting is the topic is pick me. The topic itself sounds very interesting. It's pick me, analyzing the semantic connotation of typography deployed in generic categories of Netflix catalog. And the presenter is Tonya Merrick. So Tonya Merrick will be presenting on the topic. So talking about Tonya Merrick, she is an internationally trained and practicing academic and communication designer and also faculty member at DNK University in Melbourne, Australia. Here, Mindrick also lectures and researches the geographies of design, typography, and placemaking. Mary conceptualizes the role and the cultural meaning of typography in the society and chart the way type is used to Medrick has spoken on design method, typography, and place branding in Australia, New Zealand, China, Japan, the Middle East, and also the UK. So here we have the presentation by Tonya Merrick on the topic of pick me, analyzing the semantic connotation of typography deployed in genre categories of the Netflix catalog. So we'll be presenting the presentation.
Hello, my name's Tonya Mayrick, and this is my presentation, Pick Me, analysing the semantic connotations of typography deployed in genre categories of the Netflix catalogue. On a screen, good visual appeal can be assessed by users in less than 50 milliseconds. So those initial impressions significantly influence if and how audiences will engage with content. Evidently, the delivery of both striking and appropriate typography and graphic material in film and television title design is critical to facilitate audiences' decisions to watch streaming content. Reading into the ways typography is deployed by the streaming behemoth through its catalogue to capture audience attention demonstrates a key aspect of how typography is used in global contemporary media. With a small framed space to work within the Netflix catalogue line, distinct attributes of typography provide audiences with critical, written and visual information. Yet this size consideration reduces both the appropriate range of suitable typefaces that can be read in this format, as well as limits the stylistic features that may be used. However, these drawbacks have not diminished the richness of the typography used in film and television titles. As with any collection, the typography in this catalogue is indicative of the industry sectors or genres that it inhabits. Different industry sectors frequently use specific graphic and typographic attributes in their branding to position themselves in a conceptual relationship with competitors. And thus far, not a lot of research in design research and typography has sought to understand contemporary collections or sector distinctions, highlighting a gap in design research. Any catalogue of items reflects the conditions of its collectors and is indicative of the social and cultural influences within which it resides. The Netflix catalogue is an ensemble of many worldviews, reflecting varied aspects of our experiences. The catalogue items may be seen as actors from a wider performance of cultural artefacts. Audiences scroll through the content clustered by machine algorithms and more recently human-curated compilations. Here, all content is metacoded with often multiple traditional and unique genre classifications that aim to increase a title's visibility across a variety of viewer interests. It is important to state that the Netflix use of genres in their catalogue do not always inhabit traditional film genres, as scholars have noted. Film and television titles deploy typography to communicate nomenclature and genre attributes. It's a dynamic relationship between letterforms linguistically communicating the meaning of words alongside the visual characteristics of typography that may hint at an article of interest from a plot or narrative. Questions addressed in this paper are: how does the typography reference genre classifications and also distinct points of view for titles within this catalogue? What are the rhetorical visual devices employed to achieve genre classifications? What are the links between these devices, the title they promote, and the catalogue the title resides in? The goal here is to focus a lens highlighting the powerful role of typography in the Netflix catalogue. Answering these questions, the paper credits the long-established history of typography and the often overlooked role of typography in contemporary media. With a current worldwide subscriber base of 190 million, predictions suggest that Netflix, the world's most popular streaming service, will reach 200 million subscribers by the end of 2020. Netflix accounts for up to 1/3 of North American internet traffic at any given time. And it's surprising that Netflix has not received much scholarly attention. Entryway to Netflix for subscribers is via its catalogue. Now, a motion picture title performs a function for audiences to remember, to trade in conversation and experience. Marketers make film titling as effective as possible and include informative and highly connotative words and combine them to form recognisable structures and present them in telling fonts. Key ideas in film discourse demonstrate that titles make films more distinguishable and marketable, yet as we know, they are only by one means that producers and potential audiences refer to particular films. As a means of effective film marketing, many cues can be detected in film titles, and that makes films more easily graspable and desirable. The link between the rich typography and the film's genre is important as it provides as much advanced information as possible for audiences. Genre is a core aspect of Netflix's business model that appeals to consumers. However, in actively reformulating genres, Netflix guides consumers towards tastes positioned to our social aspirations, a typically Bourdieuian framework. Streaming platforms exert a deterministic power over how audiences perceive genres. Genre is not a set of rules per se, rather a dynamic process. Understanding genre is to develop an understanding of the form of symbolic action, whereby the generic organisation of languages, images, gestures and sound make things happen by actively shaping the way we understand the world. Netflix has a complete genre listing of 19 umbrella categories, around 400 subcategories, and about 73,000 microcategories. However, because studios can pay to have their titles pop up where they should not, the tenuous potency of Netflix genres diminish well-researched indices. As well, Neil points out that many definitions of genre presume Hollywood and American culture as a base referent, and indeed on Netflix, foreign language films are somewhat ghettoised, without all the same distinctions that English language films get. Typography is a highly mediated visual form of written language. Arriving at its destination ready for reading and interpretation, typography possesses a dual identity through its functions as elements of language and in its material existence. Typography carries meaning and may function as a cultural code. Such cultural codes of typography can be read as established conventions or in alignment with a set of indices or signs that are used as reference within that convention. Alliances with convention in the Netflix genre groupings reflect facets of that particular genre. And this allows an audience's readings as related to a predisposition of aesthetic expression, conforming to the pre-established norms of that genre. Interpreting the graphic language of typography as a system of cultural codes in this context is determined by the genre classifications of the Netflix catalogue under the lens. In pursuit of successful communication, design artifacts like film titling, designers use the typography not in isolation, rather from within a defined relationship to convention. Just as specific graphic symbols are used within particular industries, such as graphic rendering of a weight scale in a law firm's identity, or performance masks used in theatre, drama, or stage identity, specific facets of typefaces are just as well used for their association with industries, although this is much less known. The frequency and familiarity of seeing such typefaces or symbols provides the association with those industry sectors. Mikhail Bakhtin termed heteroglossia in his 1934 paper to describe the coexistence of a distinct variety or tongues within a single language. For Bakhtin, a noveller's discourse reflects the diversity of languages and the varying ways of evaluating and conceptualizing and experiencing the world. Essentially, this is the convergence in language or speech or of specific points of view on the world. Forms of conceptualizing the world in words and specific worldviews, each characterized by its own objects, its meanings, and its values. In Bakhtin's view, the novel was best suited to heteroglossia, in direct contrast with poetry. Now, proposing all languages represent a distinct point of view, with social dialects, professional jargons, languages of generations, for example, Bakhtin argues that these are all distinguishing characteristics of a novel from the genre novels. Now, reflecting on this notion proposed for written language, I co-opt and transfer this intriguing idea for visual language to consider how typography is used to express both genre representations and distinct points of view, collectively allowing various typography presentations to coexist within one visual language grouping. These distinctions are typified through behaviours and attributes of typeface characteristics designed to actively exploit both embedded meaning and pre-existing public and traditional value systems of subscribers. Let me provide some examples. The following screen grabs are taken from the horror genre in the Netflix catalogue. All uppercase letters are deployed in 30 titles herein. Now, this might be to ensure readability of the titles across the catalogue, maximising the space allocations. However, Netflix uses uppercase letter settings on almost all film and television titles. Whether this is Netflix's design choice or the film and director and producers does require further inquiry. The use of the white tone over the film graphic, as per horror examples, is a recurrent theme with dark content reflective of the typical narrative tropes. White assists the typography to stand out. Red, used in horror titles, is generally deployed to connote blood. The colour additionally provides a focal point for drawing the eyes to the title. Scratched out typography, as seen in Death Note here, are commonly used and they are connotative of human nails scratched across a medium, such as wallpaper or dirt. But another aspect of this frequently deployed style is distressed typefaces, seen here in Winchester and numerous other examples. Distressed type is visually demonstrated through letter forms showing that they may have had acid thrown on them or been scratched through, revealing the graphics in the background. In the titles #Alive, distressed type is connotative of dirt, earthly and bodily grime, and the passing of time reflective of the film's narrative. In Cargo, the distressed type is connotative of the journey the protagonist takes and the realities of the decaying world. Both film titles use distressed type as a connotative measure of the worlds presented and the narrative of passing time with a virus of zombie-like proportions. The title Ritual, on the other hand, also demonstrates distressed type, yet in this example, this is connotative of solemn ceremonial occurrences, frightening in nature. Now, all titles use this distressed type to connote all that is not right. The missing colours in distressed type have become symbolically denotative. They've become a sign as a quality of the narrative herein. Generally, the typefaces of the collection in the horror genre engage grimier, dirtier, and more often demonstrate distressed typography characteristics. There's a high percentage of Gothic typefaces, with black and white and red most prominently used. Collectively, the grouping of typography here distinctly denotes horror and her associated subgenres. These distinctions activate the type to be read as a sign within a cultural code, within a cultural system of titling that expresses the genre's narrative distinctions, where the breeze forces open the curtain windows and candles are snuffed out in the darkness. These narrative devices explored in the typography coexist in the horror genre in the Netflix catalogue as one visual language grouping. The behaviours or the way typography is treated repeatedly in this genre become characteristically designed to exploit those narrative tropes. Let's look at the sci-fi genre. Here, seen all use of uppercase letter settings, and colour is again used as a feature attribute in the titles, with yellow for Bumblebee and Watchmen, and the colour red used for Inception, with white again featuring prominently. One frequently repeated feature of typography in science fiction titles is angular letter shapes and letters placed on an oblique. The oblique seen here in iBoy and Shanghai Fortress and Bumblebee, the angular letter shapes, as in Arc, Blade Runner, and Next Gen, are used in opposition to organic, oval, Earth-like shapes, and here this use connotes a futuristic or New World narrative, which is typical of the genre. Frequently omitting the horizontal or vertical bars on letters, seen here in Arc and After Earth, is another key aspect that is used to distinguish nuances of speculative fictions. It is as if, in the future, letters are so familiar that the horizontal or vertical bar is not required to complete the letter in its reading. Blurring of titles and the use of obliques or an on-angle typography are used symbolically in the type as a way to denote travel or subsonic speeds reflective of the tropes contained in the science fiction genres. The use of these graphic devices are accessible enough to provide individual film titles, yet collectively they can be grouped as features indicative of the science fiction genre. This speaks to the notion of a heteroglossia, one visual language grouping with distinct points of view. So when viewed as a collection of features, of feature typographical assets, it is clear that what has been used for the horror titles may not be swapped outright for the science fiction titles, and vice versa. However, we know that similarities exist, and when the films are metacoded with multiple tags, a regrouping occurs that allows connections to be made between the titles. However, these distinct features essentially still reside in connoting the narrative conventions contained herein. When the letter forms move to a picture plane beyond the carriage of the text's linguistic message, the implications for stylistic convention and graphic features allow that voice of typography to be representative of tropes of the genre. Here, the grimier the text or the more futuristic, with reference to deathly realities or the rapidity of time and space, offer distinct points of view that connote plot and narrative arcs. Typography is used as a device to draw in the audience to engage and express these key narrative features. The distinctions are most prominent in the catalogue groups at a foundational level, such as these two examples. However, documentary, romantic, fantasy, and the anime genres can also easily be understood through the prism of a heteroglossia, where the diversity of languages with distinct points of view is easily revealed. The theory fails when exploring the outrageously named subgenres of women's directors. Typography is a cultural code in this context. Those with a pre-existing understanding of the genre will be familiar with the use of these typographic devices. The sight and reading of this code allows entry to those with the right pre-established knowledge. With that knowledge, audience sector intellectually confirming their learned assumptions. Those new to the genre, however, enticed perhaps by the rendering of the stylistic features of typography in the film's title, and they're introduced to the cultural codes of the title through that function, as well, of course, with the graphic imagery and many other things. With typography either supporting or subverting the status quo in film titles, disrupting or confirming the expected belief, and understanding the audience's expectation, an entry-level reading is available that hints at the plot, perhaps set in space, or of a killer on the loose in the woods on prom night. Now, just as Mikhail Bakhtin suggests that heteroglossia causes long-term linguistic and aesthetic changes, so too does the genre classifications of film and television shows in the Netflix catalogue. The optioning of content included because, for example, you watched Black Summer, highlights how new groupings are rendered through metadata, or what is coined data behaviouralism. This moves the heteroglossia of typography in the Netflix catalogue from a system of groupings to a system of cultural or viewers' perceived choices, rendering new potentiality. Deceptively open collections. When data behaviorism is engaged through the algorithmic functions, there is nothing open about the collection at all. Yet, this collection is somewhat reflective of viewers' behaviours, yet underpinned by metadata and computer codes. So here, within the heteroglossia of typography, it is the visual rhetoric of typography that, when possessing a contextually based augmented meaning, reflects particular coded or cultural values. So in answer to the key questions, how does typography reference genre classifications and also distinctive views for titles within this catalogue, it's the repetition of specific stylistic features, such as the distressed typefaces in horror genre, demonstrating how typography is used as a rhetorical device in that genre. When consistently viewed in that example, it is associated with the genres and the association rubs off. Here, audiences' expectations are affirmed. Just as different industry sectors frequently use specific graphic and typographic attributes in their branding to position themselves in a conceptual relationship with competitors, so do the specific typographic conventions be used. Clearly, distinct points of view present difference and may be excluded from the expected rhetorical devices. What are the links between these devices and the title they promote and the catalogue the title resides in? Well, the links are the repetition of stylistic features, for these become the cultural codes, and to decipher them is to tap into the genres and its expected locations on the catalogue. The combination of these cultural codes, or the visual language groupings, with distinct points of view form the heteroglossia of typography. So in conclusion, with typifying genre conventions established through the stylistic features succinctly described of typography herein, the notion of a heteroglossia of typography in this specific collection can emerge. Similar to Bakhtin's novel as discourse reflecting the diversity of languages, allowing for distinct points of view, the typography in the genres of the Netflix catalogue can be read in a similar way. Worldviews within the text as genre offer a multiplicity of dimensions, yet are still characterised as a specific genre trope that may allow varying ways of exploring the language of that same genre. Theorising this new frame allows for an enhanced reading of the Netflix catalogue, one which responds to its richness and wealth of titles, where the catalogue is that ensemble of many worldviews. The catalogue title are actors from a wider performance of cultural artefacts, and here typography is critical to this cultural reading. These distinctions are typified through behaviours and attributes of typeface characteristics, designed to actively exploit both embedded meanings and pre-existing public and traditional value systems of subscribers. This highlights the powerful role that typography performs in the Netflix catalogue. The catalogue is a rich site of modern distribution. As a contemporary medium, the catalogue not only allows affectation of interaction throughout and within itself, but it also allows audience engagement with the mediation of meaning through the materiality of typography.